schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. So this will include a discussion of psychosis or being psychotic, and then schizophrenia, and then other schizophrenia-related disorders. Psychosis or psychotic, if you run across that word, someone who is psychotic has psychosis, and this is characterized by symptoms such as delusions or hallucinations that indicate impaired contact with reality. So they're hearing things or seeing things. They're sensory experiencing things that are not present. They're having that the other people in the room are not seeing. That's how I ask it in a therapy session. Are you aware of anyone or any sounds or voices that other people are not usually aware of? Sometimes that's hard for them to answer, but so that's hallucinations. Delusions are thoughts, and not that these are exactly part of full-blown schizophrenia, but they can be. On page 435, there's a list of different kinds of delusions, but they're thoughts that are not quite the norm or in connection with reality. So delusional beliefs that someone else, someone who's famous is in love with you, or delusional beliefs that people are chasing you or spying on you. Maybe that is true, but in a lot of cases it's not. And someone who has a persecutory type of a delusional disorder, or has just persecutory delusions and full-on schizophrenia, believes that someone's out to get them. Or a grandiose type believes that they're just, no one was ever as good. They're just so overblown. Everything is just so wonderful. They're not in connection with reality. That would be the main thing to remember. The diathesis stress model is an idea for how schizophrenia comes about. The idea is that you, or a person, we shouldn't talk about you because then you'll start thinking, you start worrying about it, but a person could have a genetic predisposition. So somewhere in their genes, it makes it more likely that they are predisposed to potentially developing schizophrenia. If no triggering event ever comes along, they may never develop it. But let's say they have a predisposition to it, and then they have extreme stress. Something terrible happens. There's just a lot of stressful triggering events. And usually when we're talking about that kind of stress, we're talking about abuse, but it could be like bullying, a move that disrupts your life, a divorce, some sort of tragedy, some loss of someone, just a lot of stress. Maybe there's just a lot of stress in the home. So the predisposition plus the stressful triggering event can lead to the disorder arising. And more often than not, late teens and early 20s, so emerging adulthood, is when this tends to arise, if it's going to. If you're much past 25, the odds of you developing schizophrenia are much smaller than they are during that 16 to 24 or so time period. That doesn't mean you should start worrying and preparing that you're going to get schizophrenia, because keep in mind that only 1% of the population has schizophrenia. It's not something you run across a lot like movies sort of make it feel like. Page 408, table 11.1, talks about the types of impairments associated with schizophrenia. So I want you to look at that. Disturbed thought process, which involves, delusions, we just mentioned. Attentional difficulties, so difficulty attending to stimuli or screening out. Maybe you're hearing everything. You're hearing the buzzing of the lights, and you can't hear people talking to you because the buzzing, that really low hum of the lights or your computer are melting into the surrounding discussion, and you can't filter it out. Perceptual disturbances are the hallucinations we mentioned. Emotional disturbances, flat or inappropriate emotions, not having appropriate emotions at appropriate times or not having any at all. A flat affect would be a blunted, just blank face. I'm telling you things and you're not reacting. What are you feeling? We have no idea. And maybe you're too disorganized in your thinking to have any idea. And then other types of impairments, confusion about who you are, just kind of scanning through here, impaired ability to relate to others, maybe you're catatonic, which means you're just in some strange position and you're not moving. You know, you've got yourself kind of twisted physically. So bizarre facial expressions, so on and so forth. Those are kind of the hallmarks of the impairments. They they get divided into positive and negative symptoms. So just remember that it's not about if they're good or bad. It's about, are they present when they shouldn't be, or are they not present when they should be. So positive symptoms are the kind of the breaks with reality, things like hallucinations and delusions that are present but should not be. Negative symptoms are things that should be there but aren't, like your affect, your ability to show and feel emotions. Page 409, you can look through the criteria for schizophrenia. 2 or more of the following present for a significant portion of time during a 1-month period. Delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, grossly disorganized or catatonic behavior, and negative symptoms. And then for a significant portion of time since the onset of the disturbance, level of functioning in one of the more major areas such as work and so forth is markedly below the level prior to onset. So you can imagine if you're not filtering out the sounds from your computer and you are seeing people or hearing voices, washing your face and, you know, making sure your hair is working isn't really something that's important. All right, and then so on and so forth. You can read the kind of the disqualifiers or qualifiers that further set up the criteria. All right, but schizophrenia is the main one in this category, but there are just a few other ones that are sort of related, sort of similar. You know, sometimes there's discussion on just how many of these really are necessary, how different are they. I've given those to you as part of a potential assignment, so I'm going to kind of leave it to you to look through. But brief psychotic disorder, schizophreniform disorder, delusional disorder, and then schizoaffective disorder. Those are the other types. And then there is a lecture from a woman who has schizophrenia that kind of sells the rest of it and explains the rest of it.